Hello everyone, and this is your average Indian sportsman Nagaditya, and it's great interacting with each one of you. Today, what we are going to talk about is bird life. So, the topic would be bird life, and usually most of the people are very confused, and it gives them immense amount of stress, and like people term wildlife and especially bird life as a very hectic task to cover upon, as they would find n number of species, n number of n number of different variety of species and of different birds. And so it's very confusing for a normal layman to get into an idea about what bird life is. And the amount of subspecies the the different avian species have is immense. It's huge, because bird life circumvents around ecotones and biome. So biome is one ecosystem, one particular ecosystem. For example, a lake has its own biome, hills have its own biome, plains have its own biome, agricultural land, farmlands have its own biome, a place full of lush green trees has have its own biome, uh, deserts has its own biome. And for example, when you have a mix of these biomes, for example, there's a lake and along with the hillside, it's a mix of two biomes. You have agricultural land and you have a water body. It's a mix of two different biomes. You have what say you have hills, you have plains, you have desert, and you have a tree thicket. It's a different biome. So just because different biomes possess different species of plants, animals, birds, insects, and it's a home for different whole altogether different ecosystem. For example, a lake would have fishes that would that would also call upon different variety of birds to feed upon those fishes. So uh, every biome has its own particular species of animals, and within animals also bird comes. So bird are categorized in the animal family, and there have been different stories uh, which paleontologists and the biologists and different genre of people who work on ecosystems and wildlife term. So so the bird life I am talking about, the wildlife I am talking about, bird life is categorized also as avian life, and comes under the animal kingdom. Hence, the story which takes us behind, where the where researchers have found that there could be two different theories which could have happened, which could have took place, so as for us the birds to get evolved into what they are right now. So two theories go by. One relates them to the dinosaurs which could fly uh, uh, considerably evolved themselves into birds, future birds, the dinosaurs which could fly. So you could find similarities in their uh, in their in their anatomy, and you could find similarities in their overall structure also. Many of the dinosaurs whose fossils which we find now are very similar to what the birds look like. Maybe ostriches, maybe pelican, maybe the uh, cormorants, maybe the vultures, maybe the uh, n number of different herons, maybe the storks. So they all are very similar to what dinosaur must have looked similar to what crocodiles are. There's another theory which they find it more reasonable is the reptilian theory. So this is a theory when where the researchers think that this theory has more possibility over the theory I told before, which related to dinosaurs. This theory is what this theory is what researchers related to reptile. For example, there's a lizard. Lizard has its home has its biome near trees and bushes, the wild lizard which you find. So that reptilian movement, it could also climb a tree, and it could also gets down, and would want to climb some other tree bush, or some other maybe grassland it could venture into for food or some other purposes. Uh, Hence, this theory is what suggests that lizards, because of constant and continuous movement from down the tree to back forth to the another tree or the same tree back again, would have developed that this jumping pattern from tree to ground and from ground to trees, and this would have given them back and again. This would have in future this constant movement would have helped them developing wings. So still we find lizards and snakes which have wings and which could glide. So this particular theory is given more relevant than the other theory, and because of this movement you find the reptiles or the lizard would have in future evolved into birds what we see today. So there could be all of these theories are very interrelated, because dinosaurs also could be traced back to the reptilian family, and even the lizards, crocodiles, and other reptiles also. So the base, so the origin of the avian species what we see today most probably is from the reptile species, because they also give eggs and birds also give eggs. It's just that they could fly, and they have evolved in various different patterns across the globe, because there are immense different amount of landscapes, different amount of biomes, which could which offers a different different species of fodder for them, and different ecosystem. The weather also changes, so a lot of complex changes would have happened into the overall avian species what we see today. I personally didn't have any idea about what birding was actually. I mean, I when I'm a hotel management graduate, but when I ventured into my own project, wherein we were our own project where we were we wanted to sell different landscapes around Udaipur to tourists, and along with good hospitality being served like tea, coffee, and food also was uh, accommodated along with those drive. So we wanted to make an offbeat experience for our tourists. So for getting into there, although I had a good lot of interest into wildlife, because since childhood only, uh, uh, through National Geographic or Discovery Channel we have been groomed that there's something very interesting which happens in the wild, and the interest was always there, but I didn't have any idea about the different species of bird, and people used to talk about birds that seem to look very confusing for a person like me. Now coming back on but gradually constantly I figured out for this particular profession I'll have to get into the different anatomy, the different uh, behavioral patterns and the variety species different birds have in my particular ecosystem, that is I reside in Udaipur, so that is Rajasthan. And so overall this bird species which Rajasthan has, and which the bird species which fluctuate in Udaipur, the migratory birds or the residential birds across India and the subcontinent, I have to have that idea. So I ventured into covering up different aspects into bird life. So this brought, although it's very complex, different anatomy wise and different wings, and there are different terminology, there immense amount of terminology given to bird. But I would want to make very simple for you, especially for those people who doesn't have any idea or would want to have an idea and venture into wild, and it could turn into a beautiful passion and give you an eye for it, would want you to be better every day, providing with that eye for detail aspect. So uh, what I would want to so where we were continuing earlier with the biome and ecosystem. So the question arises: why do people get confused when talking about the avian species? Why do people get confused? They get confused because there are immense different amount of species, and it becomes a task for them to get different names. And it's very confusing where to categorize what. There are so many families, and for example, there's a tiger, there's a lion. In cat kingdom there are very few cat species which you could uh, you could count on your fingertips, but doesn't apply to the bird life. It's very complex. But I would want, but it's complex only for those who haven't ventured into the bird life, or haven't had any experience knowing birds. So what scientists and what the researchers and the specialist birders are doing is they are categorizing bird life through their behavioral patterns. So some birds would have are passerine birds, which would which could sing, which could perch on trees or perch on wires. There are different birds which doesn't have those capabilities of perching, doesn't could cannot perch on perch, and cannot many of the birds cannot sing in that pattern, which some birds can. For example, a parrot has its vocal cord below the windpipe. We have it, although on the contrary, we have the humans have it here above. So at one point of time we could only make one voice out, and on the contrary, bird like parrots or other songbirds, may it be the cuckoos or different Indian quails, they would have it here. Sparrows, they would have it below. So they would have it their vocal cord here. So when they are generating that, when they are generating that energy, that could splinter into different tunes or wavelength, and then further into one point they have immense amount of different voices coming through. That's a specialty of some birds. On the contrary, there are some birds which could perch, which some birds cannot perch because they don't have those capabilities. Some birds would rely only on vegetarian food. For example, sparrows, the munias, the silver-billed munias, the parrots, they would more rely prominently on fruits. They would rely on grains, and and of course the vegetation. They could make the food out of the usual vegetation. And but most 90 and even more than 90% of birds rely on non-veg, and hunt basically. So it has to be the 80% of the bird species rely on hunting insects and flies. So that is their prime food. I would want to categorize. Most of the species of bird, 70 to 80% would rely eating on insect and flies. There are many different species, birds of prey, which have immense amount of different capabilities. May it be falcons, may it be eagles, may it be the kestrel. The kestrel family also comes in falcon. May it be the uh, hawk family. May it be the uh, may it be this osprey family. So family would have its eyes black, one of the fastest flying predators in the air. Then comes eagle. Eagle has its own dimensions. It has it's a unique creature in its own world, and is the king of its own uh, uh, phenomena. It has immense amount of capabilities to hunt, to fly, to spot its prey, and keep its uh, phenomena intact, keep its kingdom intact, and rule the skies. Vultures also, on the contrary, has their own capability. Also, they do not hunt, but they would probably scavenge on other dead species, but they have their own capabilities to spot immense amount of different dead meat from very high altitudes, kilometers above. They could spot, or so they have those capabilities. They have that eyesight, is being awarded to them by nature. And that's the beauty of distinguishing birds, and the beauty of distinguishing wildlife around. Then there are sparrows, which come in the passerine family. There's a whole thrush family. There's a huge family of thrushes, starting from the brown rock thrush, the very common bird found in here in Udaipur, to whistling thrushes found in different hilly regions of India, to across continents also. The same thing is happening. There's just subspecies, eagles. You would find different subspecies of eagles across the globe. India specifically, there are booted eagles, uh, uh, hawk eagles, mountain hawk eagles. There are serpent, uh, uh, short-toed eagle. There are serpent hunting eagles. There are black eagles, and there are fish eagles. There are, and so on and so forth. Owls, I forgot to mention owls. Owls of various species, and that's a nocturnal bird. So that could hunt on other bird of prey also, because it has its own capability of hunting during night. The other bird doesn't have any idea what's coming, and it's so crazily stealthy in its nature of its flying. It's unimaginable, and an immense amount of species in birds, from owlets to jungle owls to the big barn owls to the big Indian eagle owls to the big spot-bellied eagle owls to fish owls to buffy owls to wood owls and go for so on and so forth. So I'm categorizing these birds. So there's a thrush family. There's this thrush family is again song. It's thrushes and a whole lot of birds come into that family. And I guess uh, under thrushes also come these family of birds like the specifically these larks and pipits. So pipits are usually that you'll find in the plains, and larks also you'll find very similar to pipits plain, and because it forages on those plains and it has its own habitat on those plains. Then comes the family of birds, the crow family of birds. Like for example, there is a crow, and there are drongos, same family. Then there are other species which come into the crow family also, and then you have the cuckoo family, the quail family. It's that all of these species come into one family. Many of them migratory, also coming from Africa. Jacobean cuckoos to hawk cuckoo to plenty of beautiful birds. Then you have uh, the sparrow family, or the munia family, like tricolored munia, uh, uh, avidavids, spotted strawberry avidavids, green avidavid. All of these family come under the whole sparrow passerine family. Then there's a species of then other species like kingfishers have its own, where 10 to 12 different species of kingfisher reside in India. They have their own sphere of categorization. Then there is roller, similar but yet another different species. Then there are ducks. Ducks also is category of dabbling duck, which could dive into water, and there are ducks which could doesn't have the capability to dive in, but just float. And there are wader species. Wader species would get categorized into plenty of different, like lapwings to plovers to n number of different species. Lapwing and plovers are into one family. Bratten cones, they are a similar family, but they are waders which usually forages around the wetland, foraging on insects, crustaceans on those wetland. Maybe the stilts, maybe the coots, the uh, 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 um, n number of other species, from ruffs to greenshank to uh, n number of different species. Then there's immense number of different species also reside in the coastal belts, which usually hunt, like the gull species. You could find them very closely related to the lapwing family. But sorry, not lapwing family. Lapwing family is a bit different, but on like the gull family and tern family are in the same categorization, because they have their physical features are almost similar. Lapwings are different, and lapwing also you'll find different terrain, different lapwing, from uh, red-whited lapwing, yellow-whited lapwing to river lapwings to provers to Pratten coal, all same family. Then there are larks. I was talking about the sparrow larks, which are very similar to sparrows. They would camouflage themselves in rocky terrains, and but very beautiful to spot and very difficult to spot it. So there's a pigeon family. You'll immense amount of pigeon family you'll find, which forages on vegetarian food, probably, or mostly on fruits and other grains which they find in the wild. Green pigeon family is very widespread in India. A lot of different species of green pigeons you can find in India, and the uh, and plenty of subspecies. For example, uh, falconets, and there are small species of birds of prey which are falconets, which are small size falcon, very fast and very lethal. You would find in the Himalayan belt. And there are hornbills, immense amount different species of hornbills find. Grey hornbill, the Malabar hornbill, the Great Indian hornbills. So, six, seven different species of horn, very pretty looking birds. And all of these species have their own habitats that would reside in certain pattern. Some would make nests on their own. Some would make, for example, weaver birds are there. I would again categorize them as passerine species, similar to what the sparrows are, uh, and uh, so they weaver species would weave their own nest. Then there are other species, for example, there is a lot different species of uh, uh, many colorful species of bird you would find in Himalayan belts. I'm just not able to recall the name right now, but immense amount of different species. Many of them, are close or also related to the crow family, because although they are not black, but they are. Then there is the pheasant family, huge amount of pheasant birds. Pheasant family in the regions of Himalayan Indian belt, the grey jungle fowl, the red jungle fowl, which is native to India, and high regions of Himalayas also has immense different amount of different species, pheasant family, and uh, and many of those species are have been translocated from India to other parts like in America to New Zealand, so that the Britishers could hunt and enjoy their hunts in other continents also. So this that is also has happened, and then there are species of night birds like night jars and frogmouths, uh, which gets which gets alive, which gets risen during the night time. The arousal time is the night, not the daytime. Daytime they're usually sleeping. And nocturnal creatures. Uh, there are some birds which have diurnal features. Like owls have diurnal features, and they're active both the time depending on their own will. And many of different species uh, like the barbets, different species of barbet you would find in across India, and uh, different species of cormorants also you could find in India. Vader species I was talking about. So uh, there are herons, there are coots, there are pelicans, there are all of these reside in the wetland areas, whole pool of different species. Not very difficult to get them knowing, and other species also include the tailor bird and fulvetas, the uh, liculas, the manas. Manas are again similar to what say the crow family, jungle hill mana, common mana, the bang mana. Then you have the hawk family, the little banded ghost hawk family, sparrowhawk family, the Chinese sparrowhawk, harrier family. Harriers are immense, beautiful hunters. Like hunters, and you would find them hunting different other birds also. For example, there is the very pretty looking bird these harriers are, and kite family, very close to the eagle family, but a uh, little little smaller in size than the eagle family, but of course they're the same family of categorization is similar. And then you have the then you have the sunbird family, very pretty, different subspecies you would find across India, and very pretty looking, and spider hunters, n number of species, and not very hard to distinguish. It's just that you just need to realize that there are different habitats, and according to that, different birds have evolved themselves and have their own diet system. They have their own regulatory system. Many there's a time period when the birds would migrate depending on the weather. There's a time period. There are the different calls which they have to communicate among their own circle of subspecies. There's mating calls. There are alert calls. There are calls to interact among themselves. There's a pattern of calls to get the know-how of what's happening around. So they have their own language of communicating. There's a pattern of migration also. You would find a very similar pattern which has been followed year after year, and because it's like a heritage for them, and it gets passed on to other generation. For example, birds coming all the way from Siberia to from Europe to Africa, from Africa to India during certain time period in the year, they would have their very subtle uh, uh, route. So in America, they have also researched and worked upon the routes which the specific species of the birds have been using. in migration, because if, for example, in Himalayas it snows heavily in the winters, and a lot of species of birds they're living there, may it be from the insect flycatcher family, the insect eating families, may it be the thrushes, may it be the may it be the different uh, other species of bird which would translocate themselves to the warmer areas which they are more accustomed to, and find which could easily provide them with food. So it's not a very difficult word to traverse in. And we would also have short films on different birds, and the variety among them. They also change their feathers are changed according to year. There is a it also depends, it also helps to recognize the color of the feathers, also helps to recognize the age. Although it could also be uh, the plumage, they say it changes. The plumage gets changed year once in a year. It's usually the autumn month or the spring month where they are distancing themselves with the old feathers, and new feathers are on. So there are adults, there are sub adults, and there are the young generation, which from those also you could distinguish from their color. And it's immense amount of interesting whole different world to get into, and get your binoculars and search for different species, and especially for the unique species which you would not find very easily in the city areas. The pittas, there's a species of bird, pitta, Indian pitta. There and many of the bird species are also very shy. You would not find them traversing around the human settlement. But they would be there, but they would not be very vocal or very visible around. So we would carry on with our discussion in future. Thank you.